Hey guys, it's your boy, Ballface8020, back again with another great commentary. I know you guys are hungry for more astrology stuff on, I think Wednesday evening, I placed in a bet on a Brazilian soccer match. I put down $680 and I ended up netting 4,300. So I'm really happy about that. I have dramatically revised the methods I'm using, so I will talk about that in a later video. So the election is coming up. I know that I have some viewers who are, very anti-Trump, and to them I would just say, before you get on me or leave a comment, reacting to anything, because I'm going to say some things you're probably not going to like, but you have to keep in mind, like, it's got nothing to do with you beating me, because I've already lost. For me, this election is a lose-lose. Like, if Trump loses, Trump goes to jail. If Trump wins, he gets blamed for the shit that's coming down the pike. And that's what I mean is, shit with the economy. With the economy for certain, with the dollar, I could kind of go either way, possibly. The dollar, I don't know. But with war, I don't see any way to avoid that. And I'm not trying to scare anybody. I don't think it's going to be, I don't know, obviously. I don't think the war is going to, first of all, I don't think it's going to be, a nuclear holocaust. I don't think it's really going to affect people in the U.S. too much. But I do think the U.S. is going to lose. I don't think the U.S. can beat Russia. I don't think the U.S. can beat China. I don't think the U.S. can beat North Korea or Iran. I would favor all of those countries over the U.S. very strongly. So, for me, it's a lose-lose. So, if you're having any thoughts of, like, getting back at me, you're pining for revenge or to show up the wrong person, because for me, it's lose-lose. So anyway, here's how we go. Right now, on the surface, if you're just looking at the surface, it looks like Trump's going to win. And it's not that I disagree with that. In fact, I do think, again, you put a gun to my head, I would say Trump is going to win. And I would base that on the fundamentals. Like right now, the economy sucks, the country's falling apart. So you would expect the incumbent, and I know Kamala is not really not technically the incumbent, but her party is. So you'd expect it for that. The other thing is just the vibe in the country. I felt like the vibe was for Trump back in 2016, and it was for Biden in 2020. And both times it was close. And I feel like where this country is, like in 2016, there was like a vibe of looking for something new. In 2020, there was a very strong vibe of get back to normal. And, so the something new favored Trump. The get back to normal favored Biden. And now I think it's a different vibe. It's not so much that there's like a vibe like needing political change, as much as it's just like I feel like the public has become more Trumpian in their attitudes. Is more hostile to big business, less trusting of, the establishment and the media, even hostile towards it, less trusting of the United States government institutions, less faith in the future of this country, which, even less than 2016, which is saying a lot, less interest in the politics of race, and a much less welcoming attitude towards immigrants. I think, it's very hard to remember what things were like before Trump. Before Trump, you couldn't even say anything about illegal immigrants. And now I feel like there's this vibe in this country of just hostility to immigrants. I mean, not really. I mean, nobody really gives a shit. But like, there's like I'd say just a more just sort of anti-immigrant attitude. It's not like I'm not saying there's about to be pogroms against immigrants or anything like that, but just that there is that kind of vibe. So I would say the first thing is the fundamentals. Second thing is the vibe. Third thing is the polling. And we're going to talk about that, which seems to be going towards Trump mostly. Fourth thing is the betting markets. And then fifth thing is the astrology, which I've talked about before. I don't really have anything new to say about the astrology. You can see the videos that I made about the Trump solar return chart, J.D. Vance's solar return chart, Kamala's solar return chart. Those are the main things. And then I did one about the debate. And I think, what people are going to say, understandably, is like, well, your astrological predictions are shit. Yeah, that's true. That has been the case. The difference is that, well, first of all, the one with the debate, I'm pretty sure I can explain it. Again, we'll talk about that in a different video. But there's a big difference between doing a contest chart, which is it's a whole own world. And I admit that I haven't been very successful with them. I feel like I'm starting to turn a corner now. Like I just mentioned that huge bet that I hit. But there's a difference between a contest chart and a solar return chart, or just the birth chart, natal chart that I did for each campaign. Those are. Contest charts are more difficult. They're more difficult. There's a lot of different ideas about how you should approach them. Whereas, reading a solar return chart or a natal chart, I mean, anybody, that's pretty straightforward stuff. There's not the room for interpretation or deciding who gets what and stuff like that. It's very straightforward. So, like, because, like, to me, like, and I talked about it in those videos, it's a very strong case. Like, it's like the charts to me show a Trump victory in the election. Okay, that's I don't know any other way to read them but that. The stars could be wrong. That could happen. I don't think there's a chance of me misreading it. Like, whereas, like, with the contest charts, I mean, sometimes the contest charts are just wrong. That happens. But I think that most of my failures, at least my big ones, have been from me misreading them. The chances of me having misread these charts is pretty much zero. Like, I mean, you can go see the videos. I explain what I'm thinking there. I don't see there being any room for debate. I think that those charts are clear. That doesn't mean that's how it's going to shake out. Okay, that stuff happened. That stuff, things. Astrologers get shit wrong all the time. I'm not even sure I think most astrologers are probably predicting a Kamala win, or Kamala win. So it doesn't mean anything. But that's what the chart says. I mean, it depends on how much weight you want to put into solar return charts and campaign charts. My guess is that most astrologers are looking at other stuff, but I just go with what's most straightforward. So, I understand being skeptical, but I think to me, it's a legitimate data point for me. I'm not saying you should use it as a legitimate data point, but for me, it is. So we got that out of the way. We can talk about the economy, and that kind of gets me into something is that this election to me feels a little bit, and it's certainly not a one-to-one comparison, feels a little bit like a reverse, like 2016 in reverse. Because, I'm somebody who I read right-wing and I read left-wing stuff. And I remember just like there was like completely different worlds in 2016. The people, like, there were the Trump people were, I wasn't, but the Trump people were very confident that Trump would win. I was confident that it would be closer than the media said it would. But I think at the time I said, I think Trump will win the popular vote, but lose the electoral college, the opposite of what happened. But the left was like, they weren't just confident of victory in 2016. They were assuming it. They were already thinking about the day after and down ballot stuff. That's kind of what I'm seeing now. Like, the left still the left is confident, but not as like assuming of victory as they were in 2016. And the Trump people, I would say, are at a stage kind of similar to the Hillary people in 2016, where a victory at this stage is just assumed. Like, it's like, oh, we've already won. Now it's just a matter of how many Senate seats are we going to pick up? How many down ballot races? Is Trump going to win the popular vote? Stuff like that. Needless to say, I think that both, maybe not needless to say, but I think both views are mistaken. I personally think Trump will win, but I don't think it's like, again, even with all the things I mentioned going for, I don't think it's a sure thing at all. I mean, I like if Kamala wins, I'm not going to be shocked. Absolutely not. Kamala wins, I'm not going to be shocked. I think that the reason that the Trump supporters are so confident is more than anything else the polling, to a lesser extent the betting market. So for the betting markets, to me, that they don't mean anything. I mean, I put them in that list earlier because, okay, I guess it's something. It's not even that they don't mean anything. It's just that I don't make too much of them. It's like, okay, it's a data point, but in isolation, I would say it means nothing. Take it with everything else, okay, maybe. Like it's something, but by itself is not a huge deal to me. The polling, though, I do take very seriously. But I think what they see with the polling right now, if you look at like the multi-candidate race, the polling favors Kamala by 1.8 points in the popular vote. And I think a lot of pro-Trump people are assuming that the polls, the national level polls at least, are underestimating Trump the same way they did in 2016 and 2020. And I just don't think that's true. I don't think, because this election has a completely different vibe than the last two. Like in 2016 and 2020, you couldn't like wear Trump gear. You couldn't have a Trump sign on your lawn because you couldn't wear Trump gear because you'd get physically attacked. You couldn't have a Trump sign on your lawn because it would get vandalized or stolen. And this year I don't see a lot of Trump signs, but I see more. And I also don't see the just like I don't see the like passionate hatred towards Trump and his supporters. I don't see the same passionate Trump support that I did. It doesn't. The country in 2016 and especially 2020, the country felt like it was. I didn't think it was going to be a civil war, but it felt like a civil war environment. That's what it felt like. This election doesn't feel like that at all. And which doesn't mean that it couldn't turn into that, but the feeling is completely different. And that makes me think that the pollsters are going to have an easier time getting in touch with Trump voters. Because it's not really like, I can understand like in 2016 and 2020 why somebody would have been hesitant to say that they were voting for Trump. So pollsters could miss them. I don't think that's happening this time. I mean, I'm sure maybe there's still some of it. In fact, I would even say that, look, the pollsters probably are underestimating Trump a little bit, but I would say like by like half a point this time. And I think it's going to be, and I don't think Trump's going to recover any lost ground, any of the ground he's between him and Kamala between now and the election. I think it's 1.8 right now, and the final popular vote will probably be somewhere around 1. And 1 point, like Kamala will win the popular vote, I think, by around 1 point. And I know they say, well, one point of the popular vote isn't enough to win the Electoral College. Yeah, you say that now, but I don't really buy that. And then the state level polls also favor Trump. Now those I don't believe at all, because I remember how bad the state level polls were in 22. Now the national level polls were good. The national level polls, I think it was I don't know. I think the national level polling average in 22 had the Republicans winning the generic House vote by 1.5%, and they ended up winning by 2.8%. So a 1.3% error, that's 1.3 percentage points worth of error. That's pretty good. And I think it's going to be even less this time. but or even fewer this time. I don't know. It depends on. I'm not sure. I think that's one of the cases where you can use less or fewer. So the national thing I think is pretty accurate. Yes, it could be that they're underestimating Trump by the full 2 points, like they did last time, or that it's going to tighten between now and the election day. I don't think so, but I guess both of those things could be true. But I'm just telling you how I see it. I think it's probably like that, probably pretty close like that. Because there's a couple things you have to keep in mind. One is demographics just dramatically favor the Democrats, and two is that for the backbone of the Democrat coalition, that's educated white liberals, the last 4 years have been really good. They haven't had Trump, and they've kind of gotten that return to normalcy that they craved, and their property values have gone way up, and their 401ks have gone way up. Like, yeah, there's been inflation, but their wages have gone up too. I'm not saying that they've been, they haven't been great. They could have been better, but it's been pretty good for them these last 4 years. For everybody else, including, most non-white Democrats, the last 4 years have been bad. Now, it's not Biden's fault. And I think, I think most voters understand that. But elections in the United States come down to the most retarded people on the planet, also known as swing voters. And they have been affected, by, how bad these years have been. And it's not even necessarily that they blame Biden for it, but they kind of subconsciously impacts their vote a lot. Yeah, so no, with the state polls, I just don't know what to believe. I do not trust the state polls that say that Trump's winning. If you're a Trump supporter, I guess it's better that he's winning in them than he's losing. But why should we believe that these state polls showing Trump winning are any more accurate than the state polls showing the Republicans winning in 22 were? That I don't see. I haven't heard any explanation for that. The popular vote thing, I feel pretty good about. I think that Kamala will win that by round one. So we'll see where that goes. Yeah. Anything else with that? Yeah. I think that sums up the main stuff. It is weird to me to see how confident the left is, because I hadn't been reading left wing stuff for a while. I hadn't been reading a ton of right wing stuff either. But I wanted to go back to just to see how they were reacting, and I don't know why this used to always happen, and it's one of the reasons I stopped reading the left, is because they always think they're winning, and there'd be times where something seemingly bad would happen for the left, and you'd go there and expect to see them in despair, and they're either not talking about it because they don't notice it, or they don't think it's a big deal, or they still, or whatever, they still think they're winning. Like, an example would be the reaction to the Kamala interview on Fox News, where, the right was saying it was a complete disaster. I don't know. I didn't see it. And even if it was, I wouldn't have expected it to impact the race. But I went to go see what the left was saying, and I was expecting them to at least say oh yeah, it was a mistake. They shouldn't have done it. But no, it was, to them, it was like a huge triumph. So I don't know, whatever. I don't think that it does. I don't think it mattered one way or the other. No, I have to admit, and I probably shouldn't have been, but I'm so surprised by how confident the left is. They really do think that they're going to win, because again, there's different types of liberals. There's the kind of liberals you see online, the really engaged ones, and then but that's not most liberals. Most liberals are like the liberals in my family, in which that they don't really follow politics. They do, but not as passionately as they did during the Trump era. They don't really understand politics. They don't understand policy. And at the end of the day, they have no real beliefs beyond what the TV tells them to. That's seriously. And you know what? Our side's not any better. Most people, again, they have their tribal identity, and then they build their politics off of that. And, the difference is that the left is a lot smarter than we are. So they're able to come up with more intelligent sounding reasons. But for 90% of them, it's just you could tell them to think the opposite If the right people told them to think the opposite, they would. We're a little bit more independent than that because, like, we, like with us, with there's a lot of that with us too. But you'll see with like we've actually had to like fight our own leaders and stuff, like for immigration and stuff. Like even when Trump, like I remember, like the left, because they have such a top down worldview, they really thought that when Trump came out in favor of the Dream Act, that the Republican base would go along with it. It's like, oh, because they'll just do what Trump tells them to do, just like our party would, and it doesn't work like that. So like whereas like so it was outrage from the base managed to shut that down and kill the Dream Act back in what was it 2017. So our side is we're much more independent than the left, but our side is 90% NPCs too. It just manifests itself differently. But anyway, like the people in my family though, so it seems like if I go online, the people who are engaged, they're very confident. I mean, there's some doubts, but very confident of a Kamala victory. Not as confident as they were the last two times. I know 2020 is a little different because everybody was kind of didn't know what to expect. But like assuming victory in 2016, confident in 2020, and maybe a little less confident this time. But maybe not so much, a little less confident this time, at least for most of them. And some of them aren't confident at all. But overall, though, they're confident. They think they're going to win. And like our side is just completely, again, where the Hillary supporters were in 2016, assuming victory, already thinking about the day after. And I think that's just incorrect. I mean, I guess we're about to find out. I think Trump will probably win, but again, if he doesn't, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Not at all. Not one bit. But anyway, the real reason I wanted to make this video, what I was just thinking about, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me earlier, is what happens if Trump wins? Because, like, there's no way that the Democrats still control the Senate, which has to certify the election. The Democrats are not going to certify a Trump victory, especially if Kamala wins the popular vote, as she probably will. So where does that leave us? Like, I would assume that it eventually goes to the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court will, and you might think, well, the Supreme Court ruled against Trump in 2020. They won't rule against them, so they'll rule against them this time. I don't think so. I think the Supreme Court will either rule for Trump or refuse to rule. Refuse to hear. I don't think they'd be able to get away with that. But I think they would rule for Trump. But the thing is, this isn't the Supreme Court of 2000, where there was, more. First of all, that election wasn't nearly as existential for the left. And like this election is literally existential for a lot of people at the top of the left who are going to be going to jail if Trump wins, or at least, under legal threat. I mean, I think that they could probably get out of it, but they'd at least be under legal threat. And so there's that there. So that, I mean, but also the Supreme Court just doesn't have the credibility anymore. Like the Supreme Court on the left, at least, this is seen as an illegitimate court. And I know that's because, I'm not just talking about the people online, because I've heard the way my people in my family talk about it as like this court is illegitimate. It's too right wing. It's, stuff like it's not a legitimate court. So, so the court, if it goes to the Supreme Court ruling in favor of Trump, I don't see that ending the issue. At the end of the day, as we all learned in 2020, early 2021, despite what Mike Pence says, it has to be certified. The Supreme Court can't certify an election. The only body that can certify an election is the United States Congress. Now, the Democrats don't have the votes in the House to stop certification, but they do have the votes in the Senate. And Kamala is still the head of the Senate. Why would she certify a race that if she loses? Let's put it this way. If Kamala loses, do you think there's any chance she accepts the results as legitimate? I don't, especially if she wins the popular vote. So if she's saying these results are illegitimate, there was voter suppression, then how could it wouldn't make no sense. How could she go and certify the results? It wouldn't make any sense. So, so I don't see, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that gets resolved because, most liberals, liberal America is going to want to not certify the results. No, I don't know. I mean, I think that would be like the ultimate Pyrrhic victory. I think like if you're at like that would be like my dream scenario is that Trump wins the election, but then somehow they like don't certify it and it doesn't work because that would completely destroy the country. And that would end like without the United States, liberalism doesn't exist. So for me, that would be the dream scenario. But it's like you'd say, well, the left isn't stupid enough to do that. Yeah, they are. They're pretty fucking retarded. It's not even stupidity. It's that like when your mind gets like it's more of an inability to think clearly because they're so and I can tell you for this like because hate even if you think it's justified, that's a whole nother video there, clouds your judgment. The thing is like you said, there's a lot of bad things about hate. It can make you do bad things. It makes you depressed, even again, no matter how justified it seemingly is. But one thing is, it really causes you to lose your sense of judgment and you start making really bad self-destructive decisions. And we've seen the left do that for the last 8 or 9 years. If it hadn't been for like the insane reaction to Trump or the insane, I think that the backlash to Trump ended up hurting the left more than, it definitely hurt the left a lot more because you saw it really delegitimized the foundations that they stand on, like the media, the deep state, just like the bureaucracy and stuff. And, just civic, togetherness and whatever. And, I think so that kind of thing happened. So I don't have any predictions of how, my prediction is Kamala, the Democrats will not accept I'm going to tentatively predict Trump wins the election. If that comes true, my prediction is also that not as tentatively that Kamala wins the popular vote. Both of those things happen. I am going to confidently predict that Kamala and the Democrats do not accept the results. Now, what happens then? Your guess is as good as mine. I really have no idea. That's all for now. See you in the next.